If you're into Mega Man X, you may or may not have known there's a remake of Mega Man X1 on the PSP called Mega Man Maverick Hunter X, Irregular Hunter X in Japan. It was a sort of reboot of the Mega Man X series, and it unfortunately did not do very well, and it only got to X1. There are many reasons why I think it didn't do that well. One, it was released at a time where Capcom machine gunned out like 5 Mega Man games a year, which wasn't very healthy. Two, it was on the PSP. Okay, don't get me wrong, the PSP was a fantastic console ahead of its time, and it sold really well. But the problem is that most Mega Man games at the time were being released on the GBA and DS. So of course most of the audience naturally is gravitating there. Added to this and powered up, the remake of Mega Man 1 came out way too early in the PSP's life when most did not even have one yet. The PSP wasn't that good in terms of game library until 2007, when games like Final Fantasy and Monster Hunter started kicking off. I just think the PSP player base and Mega Man fans didn't really overlap much yet. I think these games could have benefited being released later, or at least ported to the 3DS during 2012 or 2013, to bank off Mega Man's 25th anniversary and Mega Man being in Smash Bros. Okay, sorry about the tangent. Anyways, back to what I was saying, Maverick Hunter X also had some really cool anime cutscenes, and upon beating the game, you would unlock this. The Day of Sigma OVA, which is a short 20-minute anime that was featured in Mega Man Maverick Hunter X. The OVA was also included in the Mega Man X Legacy Collection in much better quality. Day of Sigma is a prequel to X1 that serves as an origin story that shows the world X is a character and his origins with Dr. Light, where X and Zero are under Sigma's orders and Sigma eventually reveals himself to be a villain, and pretty much a glimpse at what happened before the whole Maverick Wars. It should be noted that the remake, and by extension this OVA, take place in a separate continuity from the main X games, and there are some minor differences that slightly contradict what happens in the main series games. You probably already know how the story of Mega Man X goes and what Reploids are, but I'll briefly recap if you don't. Mega Man X, or just X, was a robot created by Dr. Light as a successor to the original Mega Man, and he was created as a highly unique robot far ahead of his time who could think for himself. He would be tested for 30 years to make sure he can protect humanity and never misuse his free will. He was sealed for another 100 years, where Dr. Light passed away. X was eventually found by Dr. Kane, and Dr. Kane studied and used X as a basis to create a new generation of robots called Reploids. Robots with a strong human-level intelligence, being able to think on their own and make decisions. However, they didn't go through the same 30 years of testing. There is a flaw in these Reploids that can cause them to malfunction and go Maverick, basically turn on humanity and others, often caused by errors or a virus. Dr. Kane created Reploids to live alongside humans, and he also created Sigma and the group called Maverick Hunters to deal with the growing threat of Mavericks. Okay, let's start already. We start off in Able City. There's a giant robot attacking the city, and Sigma dispatches Zero and a group of Reploids to stop it. And then we see X diving and blasting the thing with a giant charge shot. The robot ends up being too much for the Maverick Hunters and even Chill Penguin. X charges in and the robot ends up grabbing one of the Reploids. X is hesitant to shoot the robot down. He only has to hit the red gem, but he's worried about accidentally shooting the guy, which forces Sigma to step in and destroy it in one slice. X is then scolded by Chill Penguin and Sigma for not attacking when he should. Then X meets up with Zero. What I like about the Day of Sigma OVA is that it fleshes out X as a character and shows more into who he is, as a pacifist who's hesitant to fight at first, in contrast to his more confident and experienced friend. We don't get much into X as a character in the games and his struggles, at least not on screen, to where he is shown in his character in depth. I'll go more into this later. And yes, Sigma used to be the good guy, before all this Maverick stuff happened. We do know a lot about Zero and his backstory and his character in the games, but we don't get much on X despite him being the main character. Maybe it's Inafune's bias because Zero was originally meant to be the protagonist at first. In 5 seconds, you can already tell X and Zero have close chemistry. And it's funny to me that this guy, who's once a terrifying, destructive beast of a robot made by one of the most evil scientists, who is rival to the scientist behind his best friend, appears all chill and buddy-buddy with his creator's rival's creation. Of course, Zero doesn't remember his past. I really like their dynamic and friendship as is shown in the OVA, with them working together as a team. We do get to know X and Zero's relationship really well, and it is fleshed out pretty well in the game somewhat, even if they don't go too much into X himself as a character. We also see a few character moments into the other hunters, like Chill Penguin and Storm Eagle, and who they were before they went Maverick. It's not a lot, but it's nice to see, and it makes them feel like more than just big bad boss fights. These were once X and Zero's comrades, their friends. The character moments with the other Mavericks even extend into the game itself, as in normal mode X is hesitant to take down the Mavericks, but in hard mode he's more experienced and is more ready to take them down. I like how each of the Mavericks have defined personalities. Also, the boss rush are duplicates that Sigma remade to be soulless husk of the original, giving the actual context to why you fight them again. What I really like the OVA for is that it slows down in that there are scenes where X is just interacting with people instead of immediately jumping into boss fights. As a gameplay first series, characterization is quite brief. I wonder if this purple Mandalorian did. He's up to no good. We see Sigma have a talk with his creator Dr. Kane, and he explains what makes X so unique. Stuff like his unlimited potential and how his worry is his strongest character trait. Sigma questions this and wants to understand X more. Keep this in mind for later. Actually, X is not a Reploid, as Reploids are based on a derivative of him. Okay, I'll stop. Asian parents want to get an A- instead of an A+. We also see this pink-haired Reploid character who's a navigator similar to Aelia. She's only in the OVA canon. She looks similar to Nana, a character from Command Mission. Anyways, X and Zero head off to find whoever is causing these incidents.
状況は仲間割れですかね。メカニロイド暴走事件のすぐ後にやられたようです。ゼロ、どう思う？
さあ、ですが、どちらにせよやったのは相当の戦闘能力を持ったやつでしょう。すべて急所を一撃です。
Also, surprisingly, we actually see humans on screen. Felt like pointing this out because we know humans exist, but we rarely ever see humans on screen other than Dr. Light, Dr. Wily, and Dr. Kane. I kinda wish you got to see X and Zero interact with regular humans. It would be nice to see. We did start to see more human Reploid interaction in the Zero series, especially in Zero 4, and especially in ZX. I'd like to imagine if X and Zero were treated as superheroes or celebrities during the time pre-X1, where kids run up to them and they sign autographs or action figures based on them or some dumb stuff like that. It would make the world feel more real and make the stakes more meaningful, just saying. It would make their mission more meaningful. Incredible combat skills. Not hitting the vitals. That is very good subtle foreshadowing. It makes you wonder who did that. I really like the slow build-up and reveal of Sigma being the one behind this. And he was the one responsible for the mechanoid causing chaos in the city earlier. And again, he was the one pulling the strings the whole time, and we slowly see the reveal. I really like the way how Zero figures it out, as it shows how experienced of a Maverick Hunter he is, as he was smart enough to deduce and catch on to it. And the way he dodged Sigma's attack, as if he had suspicions it was him. I like how Sigma is somewhat jealous of X's unlimited potential and seeks to exploit that, twisting X's own weakness for his own power. Like this scene, for example, where Sigma exploits X's own weakness by using Zero as a meat shield. I mean, a metal shield. Just like the Reploid we saw earlier. I like how it shows X as a struggling fighter. He can shoot them down no issue, but he doesn't want to accidentally shoot the guy. It shows how soft and careful he is. I think X1 is a pretty solid story-wise, even if it isn't that much on its own. I like X's little character arc in the game, and his struggles with hating fighting but continues to do so. He doesn't like fighting, but he doesn't like seeing innocent people getting killed either. Which holds true throughout most of the series, but I feel like it's really emphasized here. It's subtle, but I like how X is seen growing and maturing during the time of the series. We even see at the end of X1, where he is accepting this as his mission now. His ending in X4, where X is concerned about possibly being a Maverick, understanding the true danger of it, and asks Zero that if he were to turn evil, he needs to destroy him, which leads to Mega Man Zero as I mentioned earlier. X helping Aelia and using gate sets as inspiration to build a better world in X6, and taking over Zero's role at the end of X5. And Command Mission? I'm not sure, I need to play that one. As much as I don't care for X8's story and Lumine, I really like the cutscenes and the character interactions, and now all the main characters have well-defined personalities. I love X's characterization in X8. I like how X8 lets the characters have little interactions with each other outside of battle. And I like how X is very mature and serious in X8. Accepting that he needs to fight, but still expresses frustration with the ongoing conflict. But he's not giving up either. This was all in the same cutscene and it communicates his character perfectly, and the tone of his voice too is more calm compared to earlier games. He doesn't want to fight, but he's not letting innocent people suffer and wasting time either. I really like the growth X has. It's subtle, but I appreciate it. As time goes on, X becomes a real man's hero. It's really cool to see how far he's come. His relationship with Zero is more pronounced than X himself as a character in the games, though. And then there's X7, where X temporarily gives up. On the top of X7, I think X7's plot point would be fine if it was better contextualized, if X was injured and nearly destroyed in a previous battle, that would have made a lot more sense. Being unable to fight for a while due to fear and trauma that he was still recovering mentally and physically too. That would better justify or at least explain X's behavior. That's just something I came up with. Sigma's slow twist as a villain is really well done with good foreshadowing and build-up. I think Sigma is a good villain even if he is overused. He's at least a villain with the clear motivations that make sense, unlike this bitch. Don't worry Illuminate, I'll talk about you in another video, I promise. What made Sigma compelling was his obsession, deep personal history, and hatred for X and Zero. His manipulative presence, and slow twist as a villain as we saw who he used to be. Sigma launches missiles to attack the city from earlier, and X is horrified, and desperately trying to stop this. There's two continuity changes. The first one is Dr. Kane dies. On the topic, in the main canon, he kinda just dips after X3. Like, what happened to him? Did he die of old age? Apparently he founded the Rebel Force in X4. I really like the flashback with X and Dr. Light, where the latter is clearly in his last moments of his life working on X, desperately hoping that his final work will carry his legacy, with X saying that he will save the world and protect humanity, giving hope to his dying creator. I liked seeing this stuff that was probably only explained in text in a manual, shown and animated on screen. I like how Dr. Light is proud of his creation, but he's also worried about whether humanity will accept it, with X's unlimited potential being a double-edged sword. It's also an algebraic symbol, just like Sigma and Zero. X is a variable that means infinite possibilities, not to get all math nerd. Also, I like how X shows more emotion throughout, like being concerned over Light's condition as he looks tired and sick, as he's not in the best shape. Dr. Light fine-tuned the hell out of X for 30 years to perfection. It's a reason why X never turns Maverick and always keeps his head up, and he wouldn't be awakened for another 100 years. And this brings me to this topic. I'm honestly glad they scrapped the original concept for Mega Man 01 where the original X turned evil, and instead made a copy of X. It preserves what made the original unique while making an alternative version of him. Copy X is a really interesting villain because he himself fails to understand what makes the original X special and unique, and his whole vision is a flawed version of the real X that slowly becomes more corrupt. Copy X makes the original a more interesting character than just making the original evil. Copy X is an alternative version of X created by Seal that didn't have the balance of peace between humans and Reploids, and lacked the 30 years of training the original went through, having a warped mentality. The story of X kind of reminds me of Astro Boy somewhat. Yes, I know classic Mega Man was inspired by Astro Boy, but I think this also extends to Mega Man X as well, as the X series leans heavily into the ideas of free will, humanity, and what it means to be a robot. Off topic, but you should really watch Astro Boy 2003. It is a goated anime. If you really like Mega Man, it's basically a Mega Man anime in feel and character.
You may have those silver feet, but I've got these gold fingers! Here I go! Shiny finger!
Yeah, I wasn't not going to make that reference. I feel like there's a lot of similarities between Mega Man X and Gundam. Like X's armors, for example. Starting with X3, we're definitely starting to see some Gundam-inspired fits. The color schemes and the V-fins are quite prominent. You can tell they share the same design language. It feels like when Capcom were at the office designing these, they went... And coincidentally, X's English VA voiced Domon Kashu in the English dub of G Gundam. Mark Gotha the GOAT. And this leads to another small continuity change. Sigma's little purple scars. In the main timeline, Zero caused him way back in the past when he was a ravaging beast. In this timeline, X clawed Sigma's face with a shining finger. And that's the end of this OVA, and I think it is absolutely peak. This is like one of the best Mega Man X content we've ever gotten. The OVA in the game's cutscenes were animated by Zebek, which was a fairly big former anime studio who've had quite a history with the Mega Man series. They animated the cutscenes for X4, Mega Man 8, and all the seasons of the Battle Network anime and later the Star Force anime, which I have mixed feelings on. I made a whole review on it if you're interested. Deadass, I wish I got a full Mega Man X anime like this. A full anime in the same style as this would have went so hard, and we could have gotten a full Zero anime as well. I feel like the OVA shows that the X series is well capable of interesting storytelling and what it can do. I don't think gameplay is that much of a limitation. The Zero games can do this with mostly no issue, and I think the X5 and X6 are decent with some caveats. The X series storytelling is more of a mixed bag. It can be really good at times, but just doesn't go all the way there and rushes things a lot of the time. The character interactions and writing is fantastic here, and I want to see more of it, please. One last thing I want to touch on is the voice cast. I really like Mark Gotha's voice as X, and Takahiro Sakurai in the Japanese version. Yes, they got Takahiro Sakurai. the legendary anime voice actor. Both of them started voicing X in Command Mission, and later voiced him in X8 and Maverick Hunter X. I really like how they portray a more calm and mature version of X. It really shows how X grew throughout the series, compared to his more emotional, hot-blooded voice of Shotaro Morikubo. And Zero's voiced by Lucas Gilbertson or Ryotaro Okiayu, who voiced him in Japanese, and he's been voicing Zero since X4. It's just something I wanted to point out. The animation's fantastic too. It's not like super high budget or anything, but I really like the art style, with the clean 2000s anime look. And this is not in the OVA itself, but in the game's intro, there's this really fire anime opening theme. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching, I guess. Before you go, I plan to make a few more Mega Man videos, but I'm slowly branching out, as I want to cover more general anime content, or just Japanese media in general. And that's it. See y'all next time.